Hello everyone, this is the second in my series of videos on my experience starting a business, and today I want to talk about anxiety. This is something I experienced myself, and naturally starting a new business is an especially exciting but potentially anxious time, so it's been heightened in both regards the last few weeks. And I wanted to talk about this because it's something that's very close to my heart. I feel that it's important, if you're comfortable doing so, to talk about it, to help normalize it, create a dialogue, and hopefully help others out. I've also learned a number of lessons over the years that I'm now putting into practice as part of this process, starting a new business. I didn't necessarily expect that I would be putting some of these into play, but I am. So I want to share those, talk about them a little bit, and hopefully that delivers some value to someone. If it does, then job done. And I'm going to jump right in because I've got quite a bit to get through and I don't want this to get too long-winded. So firstly, something that I found very helpful as part of this process is understanding my anxiety as best I can in any moment. Why am I feeling anxious? What can I do to address that? How can I reflect on past experiences in dealing with anxiety and potentially apply those to this scenario? To give you an example, something that often causes anxiety for me that I knew would cause anxiety in this context is admin. I tend to fret and sweat the small stuff a lot more than the big stuff a lot of the time, and it can become an overwhelming obstacle to me. If I have lots of little pieces of admin that I just don't want to do, I mean, who does? But I think I'm particularly bad at that. And if I don't get the ball rolling in some way, I can become overwhelmed. So I was aware of that in myself. I knew that I would experience this, and thankfully that helped me, walk into this eyes wide open, prepared for it. And what I did was I worked through a list, as methodically as possible of these administrative pieces I needed to do, starting with the one that I felt would be, the easiest to knock off, and working on the understanding that I would build momentum by doing so, which thankfully worked. And I was able to work through them and get them off my plate and clear my head, and I immediately felt less anxious. So that was one of my roots of anxiety, and obviously I'm experiencing other anxiety thereafter, as is natural. But that was something that I knew I would have to deal with, and I knew that was something that could result in me becoming inert. So it was very important that I got it out the way. And whatever your cause of anxiety is in this context or in any other context, I find that it's so helpful if you can have some understanding of it. So start to get to the roots of it and confront that, and then find a way to sort of just chip away at it. It can really help you, make that forward movement and build momentum, build confidence, and progress from there. Secondly, reframing my anxiety has been very powerful. So, anxiety is a very difficult thing, but it can also lead to elevated performance. It helps us perform. Comedians get on stage after years and years and years of playing to a live crowd, and they're still anxious. I still get anxious every time I have to do, public speaking, even though I enjoy it, and I will put my hand up for it. I still get anxious, and I've learned to understand that anxiety and to view it as a positive thing in many respects, because I know it helps me deliver a better talk. It makes me more engaging, so I try and harness that as best as possible. And in this context of starting a new business, similarly, I've sort of reframed this anxiety as something that is largely going to be beneficial to me, and that in many respects strips it of a lot of its power. It makes it a positive thing, or makes you view it as a positive thing, and you start to look at ways to leverage it rather than being fearful of it. So I found that very helpful. Thirdly, giving myself different scenarios. This is a bit of cognitive behavioral practice that I've learned through therapy. And I found that, when I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed about something, giving myself three different scenarios, best case, worst case, and likely case, which most often sits somewhere in between, is very helpful. It helps to sort of reorientate me around, what is actually likely to happen. Am I, being negative? Am I being, overly positive or optimistic? Generally not. I'm more of a pessimist. So, am I being overly pessimistic? What is the likely outcome? And just taking pause to do that, I find personally very helpful. And I think in the context of starting a new business, when you are going out on a limb and there's a lot of risk to you, having those three scenarios in mind and just pausing and assessing will really help if you're anything like me. Then accommodating my anxiety, so working with it, not against it. If I'm feeling particularly anxious, like taking a walk, stepping away, not trying to force myself to like push through it if it's not necessary. The same can be said for your energy levels. And that's something that I've had to manage a lot of, as if I'm not feeling that my energy or my focus is conducive to a particular type of work, step away, do something else, or find a way to, refill my battery, to replenish those reserves. And I found that helps a lot with anxiety too. And just as you do that, you develop a deepened understanding of your own anxiety, how it functions, how it affects you, and when or not you should be doing certain things, or you're best suited to doing certain things. And finally, harnessing my anxiety and looking to harness my anxiety, using it to give me an edge, or as I said, in reframing it, viewing it as something that can give me an edge, but really focusing on that, really focusing on how I can leverage my anxiety and my understanding of my anxiety to help me perform, help me, push forward, help me do what I need to do, have it act as a catalyst for action. And then that plays into the reframing once again, and it becomes a bit of like a virtuous cycle where, you view it differently and you utilize it and you learn from it, and then you reinforce that more positive view of what you may have before viewed as a hindrance and a real sort of deficit. So I hope that's helpful. And if you have anything you'd like to share with me, please do. If you have any questions, please fire them my way. If there's anything I can share, or you think I can share beyond this, I would love to hear from you. And I hope you're having a great day. Cheers.